How you doing, guys? Eric from rulthewasteland.com. I know it's been a while and I'm still a bit stiff. If you'd like to know why, go check out my last videos. But I'm still able to sit still for a few minutes at a time, so I figured I'd try to crank out a video because I'm seeing a lot of weirdness out there, which would lead me to believe that we're going to see some extensive turmoil over the next month or two, specifically before the end of the year. So I guess that would be around 3 months total, but potentially within the next 30 to 60 days. There's a lot of people that specifically called for crazy stuff to happen within this time frame. There's a lot of financial things that are happening, like the student loan moratorium is ending, or just has ended, I believe, early October, which means that a lot of people are now having to pay what I've heard averages anywhere from $400 to $800 a month in the average student loan payment that was on deferment, which is an incredible amount for a population that is already living paycheck to paycheck, pushed to the brink by inflation, barely able to pay for their groceries, and hasn't even yet started actually losing their jobs or having any massive decrease in income. The income just hasn't kept up with the massive increase in prices, but at a population level, people have not really started losing income. So when that starts happening, then we're going to have all sorts of problems. We're already seeing delinquencies rise in payments of cars and houses and credit cards, bankruptcy filings and stuff rise. That's going to continue, especially when people are hit with $400, $800 a month payments that they didn't have for the past year when things were already getting tough. And there's all sorts of other specific things that are going on that could indicate a significant turmoil in the financial system in the coming months. What I'm worried about is not necessarily just a stock market plunge per se, because while I do think that's certainly a part of this, most people aren't directly hurt by the numbers on the stock market screen going down. That affects things like your retirement accounts, maybe your pension, 401k, stuff like that, but it doesn't actually prevent you from going about your day-to-day life usually, or just in and of itself. But the United States economy is in an incredibly precarious position right now that I think a lot of dominoes are going to start falling, and we very well could see various types of either credit events or actual seizing up in the banking system. Gregory Mannarino has been covering the craziness in the bond market that we've seen over the past few weeks or months, getting really shaky there, and that's usually a leading indicator of massive problems in the economy. We're seeing real estate start to get really weird. Commercial real estate is at the edge of a cliff, and there's a lot of other things that could happen in the residential real estate to shake things up. There's a lot of Airbnb houses that are just sitting there. These are second houses. I think one of the reasons that I may or may not have mentioned in a previous video, I'm not sure, but I have called for a major real estate crash within the next, I said 2 years, but that was a while ago that I said that. So sometime within the next year, 18 months at least. And I think one of the reasons we haven't quite seen that yet is people are holding on because interest rates are like at 8 or 9, 10%. It's insane interest rates. So it doesn't matter that prices are at an all-time high. I think a lot of these people would be just thrilled to be able to liquidate their houses that they have a lot of equity in right now and maybe try to downside. But the problem is, even if you're going to downsize, you have to go get a loan now that's 8 or 10%. So you might have to put your entire, buy outright if you have enough equity. If you don't, you're just kind of screwed, because why would you leave a house that you have 5%, 3%, 2.5% loan on? You are like golden handcuffed kind of to that until things get really bad. And then we'll go back to like what I talked about in a previous video, where once things start to really tank, people panic and they offload into the crash to try and beat it getting even worse. Just like people buy into the huge climbs, they sell into the huge dumps, which is not the way they should do it, but it's just human nature. So once it starts happening for any other of these variety of reasons, then I think people will jump on board and just start either doubling up, going back to renting, whatever, but they're going to be so worried about capturing any little bit of that equity that they've so painstakingly, earned over the past however many years. It's like the only thing that most people have that's gone up in value that, it's sort of kept up with inflation is any sort of home equity that people have. And then if people's boomer parents start to kick it, those houses are going to get sold like that to try and get any money out of it. Extra houses, these Airbnbs, are going to be dumped. And because people aren't going to be able to get loans very easily, and if they do, they'll be very expensive, so payments will be more on even what would be considered a modestly priced house. That's going to drive the price down even further. So we could see some really crazy stuff. But what I mostly wanted to focus on for this video is being prepared for any sort of lockup, any sort of credit event where the financial system stops functioning the way we're used to over the last however many years you've been alive. So nothing I'm saying in this video is financial advice. It is preparedness advice. And just telling you what I've done, what I've seen other people do, and advise some other people to do. I have not had a lot of money in the stock market recently, but I've taken out everything that is in the major indices, liquidated it into cash positions, and only left in commodity stocks. I do think that there is an opportunity coming up if you have some dry powder, because can't do you any good in the bank. They're not letting you take it out even right now, and if we have a seize up, you want to be able to get access to it, even if it is only a few $100s. But the reason I haven't also sold commodity stocks or commodities in general is, even though I do think that pretty much everything will get wrapped up in this when there's this initial crash. I've talked about this for a couple years on my channel, that we will have a mega crash, in my opinion, before we get the true hyperinflationary melt up. And I do think that in that time frame, I have no idea how long it'll last. Could be a month, could be several months to a year or two. It's hard to say. A lot of it depends on what our government and other governments do, what our citizens do, that sort of thing. How bad the lockup is, how severe the crash is, everything. But I do think it'll probably be more on the briefer side, months, not years. But during that time frame, things may go down in value. I think everything will get caught up in it. When there's an initial crash, the instinct is for people to flee to safety, which the only thing they know of is usually cash. They see everything going down. They don't want to lose more or look stupid, and hopping into something else is the easiest way to do that, to look stupid. So they just pull out and wait in the sidelines, and that's almost always going to mean the US dollar. So we could see a very temporary strengthening of the US dollar in compared to commodities and other currencies and even gold and silver. But I think that'll be extremely brief, because it's going to become clear pretty quick that it's the US dollar that is having the trouble, not just the US economy. It's all wrapped up in it, but that the US dollar is very weak, and that they're going to be doing these hyperinflationary mistakes just like every other dying empire has. So you could get some deals. So even though I do expect the commodities to tank along with everything else, maybe not to the same extent, but probably at the same time, I think it'll be a lot harder to nail the bottom or even make sure you hit a decreased price, because I think they could snap back really quick. I think everyone's going to flee to cash, and then I think that, digital cash too. I don't think a lot of people are smart enough to flee to physical cash, but that is what I think is the intelligent thing to do. But once everything tanks, I think the commodities, the gold and silver, will snap back really quick. Could be almost instantly, could just be sooner than everything else. But I'm not interested in trying to time that, so I'm not selling any physical precious metals. I'm not selling any commodities or mining stocks. But you can do what you think is best, because I do think we are seeing a crash coming. And if you are staying on top of the price of these things on a daily level, and you think you can jump in and save some money that way, that's certainly an option. I'm not a trader. I'm just looking at the overall economy. But beyond the actual money itself, if we do see a seize up in any sort of the financial system, the credit system, a lot of other things are going to go along with that. And so I wouldn't count on any system being operational at that point. So that means have all your basic prep squared away within the next few weeks, in my opinion. I think is very smart. If you have them, double check them, look for weaknesses. Water, food, medication. I just recently was told there's a shortage of pain medication. Luckily, I still got what I was supposed to after the surgery, but we were turned away from one pharmacy saying there was a nationwide shortage of certain kinds of pain medication. So I've talked about Jay's case, where you can get your antibiotics and even other medications now, like ivermectin. I've talked about the Zender power station. There's all sorts of other options like that, where you can generate power if the lights go off. A sun oven is a fantastic way to be able to cook without any fuel in a huge portion of the United States. Obviously, there are some areas where it's not super effective, maybe like Portland or something, but for the bottom half of the United States, you'll get quite a few meals per year that you can make exclusively with the power of the sun if you have a sun oven. So as expensive as they may be now, it's money well spent if you really want to have some off-grid capabilities that don't use any additional fuel. Beyond that, fuel for backup cooking methods, or even if you consider the sun oven your backup, then fuel for your primary cooking method, whether that's electricity generation, whether that's propane, whether that's wood if you live in certain areas. Calculate exactly how much it'll actually take to cook a meal, and then extrapolate that for however many meals you think you will need to cook over the time period that you expect to be prepared for, and then you know how much fuel you need. And even things that are just anything you would buy, because if we do see a real seize up, you won't be able to buy or transact in a host of different ways. So gasoline, obviously a major one, small parts and repair items, and even clothing, items that wear out like socks and underwear especially, and medical stuff gets squared away. I'm glad I was able to have my surgery as even when I did, which feels late. It feels like we're on the verge of something and I'm not going to be at full 100% capacity for a while, but at least it's done. And the recovering I can do on my own. The neurosurgery I could not do on my own, and certainly couldn't do post any sort of major disruption in our financial system or in the global economy. So glad that happened now, but dental work, anything like that. A new pair of eyeglasses if you need them, backups on contact lenses, all sorts of stuff like that. So let me know what you guys think. If you're also kind of expecting something to happen within this short time frame, or if you think everyone's just kind of getting worked up again over nothing. We've seen that happen many times over the past few years, and maybe Michael Burry will be wrong this time and he won't get his billions of dollars again from his betting on the market crash. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.